Hey, hi. Welcome back. So until now, what we've done is we've modeled in the last module, we've modeled the P&L. We couldn't complete the P&L because it has dependency on the other financial statements. All right. So in this module, what we're going to do is we will we'll start modeling some of the balance sheet items. Okay. All right. And before I do that, let me show you how the three statements are linked together. Perhaps just take a small detour, show you how the three statements are linked together, because then it will be helpful for you to kind of track. Okay. As I move from one statement to the other. Okay. All right. And one thing there is a frequent reason. Please, if you're a serious learner, okay, please watch my video on understanding financial statements as to how the statements are linked together. All right, because it would actually help you understand the linkages even better. Okay, because I do it practically. I basically pick up an Excel, and start building the three statements and how the three statements evolve together and how they're connected. All right. Okay. So with that said, let me uh, let me show you as to how the three statements are linked before we start modeling some of the balance sheet items. And by the way, I should be calling this module, modeling balance sheet items. All right. I think that's a more fitting name than this one. All right. Okay. So now let me move. Let me open up a whiteboard. So here you have the income statement. In income statement, you have sales, yeah, minus cost, yeah, okay. And then what you have is then after cost, you net off, depreciation, amortization, okay, and very basic, and then you net off interest cost, then you net off tax, then what you left is profit after tax. Yeah, all right. This is a broadly the income statement, the P&L. All right. Now let's have our balance sheet in the middle. Okay. Uh, so here you have your equity. Okay. Then here you have your non-current loans, or sorry, non-current liabilities, your long-term loans or what have you. Okay. And then you have your short-term loans or your payables, your short-term liabilities. Okay. In the asset side, you have your non-current assets, your property, plant, equipment, whatever capex that you do kind of gets added in this side. And then you obviously have your current assets, your receivables, your inventory, and this also as your cash. I'm calling it out explicitly. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Now moving my photo the left. All right. And the cash flow, let's draw a cash flow statement. Yeah. So in the cash flow, you have first your cash flow from operations, you have your cash flow from investments, investing, you have your cash flow from finance. Okay. And then you are left with net cash. Okay. Okay. In CFO, you have your profit after tax. Okay. You have your, sorry, just let me make it a little pretty. Okay. So you have your profit, and then depreciation, amortization gets added, all the non-cash expenses that get added back, and then you net off any change in working capital. That's how you get to CFO. Okay. All right. And CFI, you net off any capex, and just being a little high level. All right. Okay. Any investments that you do, CFI. CFF, cash flow from financing, any like if you take debt, any net debt issues, they get added here. Any net debt, basically debt and debt issues. Plus, if you are raising money through equity and equity, plus if you are giving any dividends, you can net them off here. All right. Okay. All right. Now let's understand. Okay, broadly how these statements are linked. Okay, very broadly. Let me use a different color. Okay, so very broadly, see, we just estimated PAT. Okay, I know that wasn't the true PAT because we are still yet to model depreciation, amortization, interest costs. Okay, but the PAT, okay, the real PAT that we get eventually, that gets added to equity. Okay, let's call it transaction 1A. Okay, it flows to your equity, gets added to your equity. Okay, and then this PAT also gets added to your cash flow from operations. Let's call it 1B. I'm just kind of labeling the transaction so that you can track it as we go along. Okay, all right. And then the other broad link is the net cash that you get from your cash flow statement. Okay, this net cash gets added to the cash portion in the asset side of your balance sheet. So this, let's call it transaction 2. So this would eventually happen towards the end. So this linkage established right towards the end, because once you kind of done modeling all the statements, whatever cash you're generating, it's at. Okay, so this linkage would be formed towards the end. So this is broadly, okay, how the statements are linked. Now let's also look at some of the other linkages, that happen, right? That we'll also see as we go along, right? So right now what we saw is depreciation, amortization. We couldn't model it. Okay, we couldn't model it because that is on gross fixed assets or gross PPE. Okay, so let me show that transaction using a different color. Okay, so your depreciation, amortization is calculated on gross assets. So we can say it's linked with, okay, let's call it 3A. Okay, all right. So what it means is, for depreciation and amortization, you got to project out your gross assets or whatever capex that you need to do in the future. Only then you would be able to estimate depreciation kya hai. Okay, that you will be able to estimate only then. Okay, now that capex, or that which gets added to the gross assets, okay, that is also a part of cash flow from investing. Okay, this goes here as well. Okay, so this this goes here as well. Okay, all right. And your depreciation and amortization, okay, actually goes here as well. Let's call it 3B, because it gets added back. Okay, all right. Okay. And this gross asset that you need to estimate, let's call it a different transaction. Let's call it transaction number 4, because it gets added to, it's basically capex that gets added to our cash flow statement. All right. Now let's talk about interest. Okay, because it's another item that we couldn't model. Okay, so interest cost is calculated over your loans. It could be short-term loans, it could be long-term loans. All right, so let's use a different color to show it. Okay, let's use this color. Okay, all right. So interest cost is calculated from your short and long-term loans. Let's call it transaction 5. Okay, all right. And then okay, also your loans, whatever loans you take, whatever net debt that you take, okay, which obviously is here. Yeah, all right. This needs to be part of your cash flow from financing. Let's call it transaction 6. Okay, see, hope you're getting a sense. Okay, because in CFF, cash flow from financing is all about how you are raising your money, how you're financing. Okay, so that if you're taking debt, so that money that you take from the bank, okay, that needs to be shown in your cash flow from financing. That's a cash inflow. Okay, and also it needs to be shown in your balance sheet in the liability side. Okay, which is this, so that connection we are showing as to how the debt appears on the books is through transaction 6. Now, there is one more item and quite an important one. Okay, so which is working capital. Okay, so let's pick up a different color. Let's pick say this color. Okay, now your current assets and current liabilities, they need to be modeled out in the future. Okay, basically your receivables, your inventory, all right, and your in the liability side, it's your payables, so on and so forth. So all of these, okay, so difference between current assets and current liabilities is working capital, and the change in working capital, okay, needs to flow to your CFO side. So let's call it to your CFO, change in working capital. Let's call it transaction 7. Okay, because as I said, it's a drag. It's a drag on your on your cash. Okay, see, firm could be reporting profits very aggressively. Okay, gets added to equity. Okay, but if the if your customers are not paying in time, or if you have inventory buildup, okay, right, and or if you are if you got to like pay your suppliers right away, it impacts, it has a negative impact on your working capital. Okay, so which drags your CFO down. Okay, so it adversely impacts your cash flow from operations, and the result is you're not left with a lot of cash. Okay, so that's how it kind of flows. So your profit after tax should always be backed up by your cash flow from operations. Okay, should always be backed up. Okay, because that's kind of a healthy company. All right. In the yeah. So all right. So hopefully these linkages they make sense. All right. So now let me save it. Okay. And let's, as we model some of the items in the balance sheet, and then we go to the cash flow statement. Okay. So please track all the linkages, and I'll try to label all the linkages. Okay. Using this labeling, using these names that I used. All right. So in this module, we'll model the balance sheet items, starting with capital investments and working capital. Then we'll get to other items in the balance sheet as well. Okay, so let's start. Okay, let's go to the balance sheet tab. Okay, now before we get started with modeling these items out in the future, okay, if you I'd recommend that you watch the within financial statement analysis. Okay, wherein we looked at how these different components of the balance sheet, how they evolved over time in the past. Okay, because understanding how the balance sheet, some of these balance sheet movements, helps us understand how the company has allocated capital in the past and how they've used that capital. Okay, so having that sense is important before we start projecting out these balance sheet items in the future. All right. So now let's get started. Okay. So gross PPE, property, plant, equipment. Okay. So see, I pulled all of these items from their annual report. Okay. Okay. Now, in the annual report, they report PPE, they report net PPE. Okay. So I had to read through the notes. Okay. And then from the notes, I pulled up the gross PPE numbers. Okay. So it's important. Okay. Whenever you just have like net PPE mentioned in the financial statement, in the balance sheet, okay, please do the extra step of going to, in fact, you should read all the notes. Okay. But and specifically for gross PPE, especially for PPE, you need to have the gross PPE, and that you'll get from the notes section. Okay. Because that's going to help you, because you're going to use that to project out uh, property, plant, equipment, and associated depreciation in the future. Okay. All right. So now let's get started. All right. So gross PPE. So let's look at what the company has communicated gross, you know. So if you see, okay, what they're saying is that they'll be investing around 200 CR, of which they've already seems invested 63 CR. Okay. And and all of this seems to be maintenance capex improvements. Okay. Right. And plus there'll be some additional construction. They don't like specify very clearly as to what they're going to build. Okay. In that 12 acres of land. Okay. It could be repurposing some of the existing beds towards specialty procedures or what have you. All right. So, but any which ways, overall capex that they have said they'll do is 200 CR, and this is from August 25, 2023. So this is from this financial year. All right. So let's assume that this 200 CR, they'll do it over a period of 2 years. Okay. And if there is more communication from the management, we tweak our assumption. Okay. But for now, I believe that they will do it in 2 years. Okay. So let's project this out. Okay. All right. Sorry. Before this, uh, let's go to, I have a dedicated section. Okay. For capex schedule section. Okay. So let's project it here and then we'll move it over to the balance sheet. Okay. So this is the capex schedule. Okay. So gross PP, I have these items highlighted. Okay. The reason why I have them highlighted is, okay, because I am going to combine all these gross items in one bucket as gross PP. So gross PPE, okay, in all the future years, in my modeling, would constitute the gross PP itself, the gross ROU, which is the right of use asset, okay, and then is CWIP, which is the capital work in progress. So capital work in progress is basically capital which is deployed for any building or anything which is under construction. Okay. And once that building or whatever it is constructed, then in the subsequent period, that component CWIP moves over to the gross PPE section. Okay. All right. So that's what CWIP is. So in 2024, this is this plus this, the CWIP, plus we saw 200 CR. So let's assume 100 CR. Okay. Now, one thing, let's not hard code. Okay. Hard coding is a very bad practice. And if in case your balance sheet is not getting balanced, you can use a bunch of hard codes. It will take you a while to kind of figure out, why your balance sheet is not getting balanced and what really is happening. So no hard codes, please. Okay. So this is my capex assumption. Okay. And let me. Okay. So my capex is. Right. And my. So this year, next year capex would be, gross PP would be this plus 100. Okay. All right. Now let's estimate the accumulated depreciation. So accumulated depreciation is netted off from the gross PP to arrive at net PP, which is this line item. So let's estimate accumulated depreciation. So this is this 355.8 minus, okay, since it's accumulated. So we got to take it from the past and again remove the depreciation from this year. So let's go to the P&L. Okay. In the P&L, you would see we don't have it estimate just yet. Okay. So this is something we need to do. Okay. But eventually we need to kind of link it here. Okay. So let's link it. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, okay. So we have linked it. All right. And one thing more, I will also add accumulated amortization to kind of make my life simpler. So this my accumulated depreciation actually would constitute both accumulated depreciation and amortization. Okay, right. I could be modeling it separately, but I just want to make my life simpler because accumulated depreciation is a very small number, and I don't want to like spend time kind of modeling that small line item. Okay, so as far as possible, guys, just try to make your life simple. Okay, so let me add this item. Okay, all right. Okay. And for the future years, okay. Now here's an assumption I am taking. For the future years, I'm assuming my capex, okay, my capex, okay, would equal the depreciation of the prior year. That's the assumption I'm taking. Okay. Why? Why? Because see, uh, since since the company has not made any explicit communication about any capacity addition. Okay? So I'm assuming the company would spend uh, any capital expense would be all capital expense would be maintenance on improvements in the for the next 5 years. All right. Okay. All right. For my modeling period. So I think a good assumption is once you're done with 200 CR worth of capex, okay, capex then for any future year would be equal to depreciation of the prior year, right? So my depreciation for year 2026 would be 2025. Okay, so that's my link. Okay. Okay. Now we really need to although I've linked it, okay, but we really need to first go back to the PNL and project this out. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so depreciation uh, percentage of gross assets equals what is my depreciation in year 2023? Overall, it is this 89.13. Okay, divided by my gross assets. Okay, which is gross PPE. Let me write gross PPE. Okay, in fact, not only this. In fact, it should be H26 plus gross. Let me add all the gross line items. Okay. So this is 6.03, 6.22. Okay. So my depreciation as a portion of PP is around 6%. All right. Okay. This is my depreciation as a percentage of gross PP for the future. Same as year 2023. Okay. All right. So my in my P&L, okay, the depreciation amount would be this number, this percentage, this depreciation percentage, yeah, 6.03% of this gross PPE number. Okay, that's 95.16. Okay, if I just pull it forward, okay, all right, so it's 101.19 for 2025. Okay, and then for the future years, I don't have anything because I have not slotted the gross PPE for these years yet. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, okay. So the gross PPE. So now, so this gross PPE should be, this gross PPE from prior year plus capex from this year. Okay, and let's drag this. Okay, okay, and now we would see the accumulated depreciation should have auto filled. Okay, because we had already linked it with this line item. Okay, all right, with the capex schedule. All right, now let's estimate. Let's drag accumulated depreciation out in the future as well. Okay, so this is done. Okay, so one thing that one thing that we got to do is we have estimated this capex out in the future. We've also estimated depreciation. Okay? Now it needs to make sense. Okay, it needs to rhyme with history. Okay, so one of the ways to check if it indeed is consistent with history, it's not like ridiculous, okay, and it's grounded in reality, is check for asset turnovers. All right, so here I have the gross fixed asset turnover. If you see it was 1.18, then it's reduced to 0.69. And again, I've spoken at length about how the fixed asset turnover ratios have moved in the past in the financial statement analysis videos. That is because they took a bunch of debt to construct the medical hospitals. Then they made money through internal accruals. They started paying off the debt. Okay? And obviously, right now, the medical college and the medical college beds, they're not running at peak capacity. So that's why the turnover is low, but it's slowly starting to pick up. Right? And again, I've spoken at length about it in the analysis video. All right. Okay. So let's project out this gross this ratio to see if a ratio is reasonable. Okay, so gross fixed asset is the same. Gross fixed asset turnover ratio is revenue from operations divided by gross fixed assets. Okay, so let's drag it in the future. Okay, what we see is it's 0.74, then slowly, okay, it rose to 0.83. Okay, so it's nothing is seeming outrageous. Now let's just do the same with fixed asset turnover ratio as well. So you have revenue from operations divided by the fixed assets. Okay. Now we haven't, this is H18. So balance sheet H18 is this line item. Okay. So first we need to build this out and then go back and check. Okay. All right. So first let's do that. Okay. Let's go to the balance sheet and start pulling some of the stuff that we just bought. Okay. So this is gross PPE. Okay. Accumulated depreciation. Okay. Then net PPE, which is gross PPE adjusted for accumulated depreciation. Okay. All right. then we don't have to worry about gross ROU and and CWIP, because we've already considered it as a part of gross PPE, and within accumulated depreciation, we've already taken accumulated amortization, so we don't have to like explicitly model it out. All right. Okay. Intangible asset. Let's keep a life simple. Let's just assume that it's the same. It's any which way is a very small number. Did I? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Same thing with investments. Very small numbers. So let's assume it's the same. And please make notes. Okay. Just document your your assumptions, your rationale, or whatever you're doing. Okay. This obviously is coming from the capex and source from the capex. So you kind of write these just so that it's like clear. Capex schedule. Basically, let's just write capex schedule. We'll start. Right. Other financial assets, okay, which is really deposits with bank for business reasons. Now we can project this out as a, we can estimate what this number is as a calculate what this number is as a percent of revenue, and then based upon that, we can project on the future. For now, let's just keep it simple, and we can always come back and tweak, okay? But for now, I'm just assuming that this stays put. Okay? See, these are deposits for business reasons, and I mentioned in the financial statement analysis video, they constructed this medical college. It's affiliated with MGR University, which is in Chennai. They had to make a deposit, okay, for that affiliation, right? So this may increase slightly, okay, or it may stay the same, okay. But for now, we're assuming it's the same, all right? And obviously there are other deposits, not only that deposit with MGR, there are other deposits for other business reasons as well, right? Now, other non-current assets, it's a very small number. So I would assume that this stays the same. Okay. Now our total net current assets is done. Okay. So I'm just checking if the formula is right. Yes, this seems to be right. Okay. All right. Now, right. Since this is done, now let's review the linkages that we have been able to form until now. Okay. Let me open up the whiteboard again. So if you see, until now, we have formed this linkage. Okay, we estimated gross assets. Okay, and then on that we calculated depreciation, which we link to the P&L. Okay, all right. So now so there are linkages. There are many linkages that we are still yet to that are yet to be formed. All right. So let me go back to the spreadsheet. Okay. Now let's go logically down the balance sheet. So in the balance sheet, we have estimated the non-current assets. Okay. Now going down, we see current assets. All right. So basically it is, we are now going to estimate working capital. Working capital is current assets minus current liabilities. Okay. So first let's start with current assets. All right. And for estimating current assets, okay, let's go to the working capital schedule. So I've already created a working capital schedule in a separate sheet. Okay, so let me go that sheet. Okay. So in this sheet, okay, I have pre-populated the receivables, the inventory, other financial assets, all the line items which make up current assets. Okay. And since in the financial ratio, while computing financial ratios in that video, I'd already computed the financial ratios, the financial metrics around current assets. So I'm going to make use of them. I pulled them from the financial ratio sheet. Days sales outstanding, days inventory outstanding, so on and so forth. All right. Now, let me project out receivables. Okay. So remember, when we're doing the industry analysis, what we saw is that in this industry, receivables should increase in the future because of the increasing health insurance penetration. All right. So right now, as of 2023, receivables is 9 days. So I'm going to assume that it's going to increase in the future. Okay. And of course, we can always uh, cross-check the receivables of 2024 with the H1 financials, which were released earlier. Okay. But let's make that assumption that the receivables will increase gradually over the next few years. All right. Okay. Now, let's, using this 10 days of receivable outstanding, let's project out the receivable number. How do we do that? Receivable days outstanding divided by 365, okay, times the sales. Sorry, this number. Okay. Right. And now let's drag this. So this is the receivables. Okay. Now let's do the same with inventory. So inventory is around 4.9. Okay. Let's assume we have the same inventory in the future years as well. Okay. So this we are assuming same. And by the way, it's always a good practice to, assumptions should be put in a different color. It's always a good practice. Okay. So we can always, when you looking at a sheet, you can always pinpoint them and change if required. Okay. All right. So now let's use this inventory of days outstanding. And again, if you want to know what these terms mean, I explained them, I've covered them at length in the financial statement analysis video of this very company. All right. So let me do that. And I am going to multiply it with sales if I can. Okay. Because this ratio 4.9 was calculated from the sales number and not from the COGS number. You can do it from COGS as well. If you do it calculated using COGS, and you got to obviously you got to be consistent. Okay. In this case, I've used COGS. Okay. All right. So this actually, although it says COGS, but I have actually used sales. Okay. So I'll make that correction. All right. So now let's pull it forward. So this is my inventory. Okay. Now there is something like other financial assets. Okay. Which is interest accrued but not yet received. So, and plus there are other components which make up other financial assets. So let's you know what? Let's do the same. Let's estimate days of financial assets outstanding. Okay. It's not an industry word per se, but I need something to, I need a ratio, I need a metric, and then use that metric to project other financial assets in the future. Okay. So let's do this. So other financial assets divided by sales from operations times 365. Okay. And I would just pull this to the left. Okay. Similarly, let me do it for other current assets as well. So these are like some expense advances. So let me, let me do the same. Okay. And let me lock it so that I can just use the same formula. Okay. Now let me drag it. Okay. Now in both the cases, let me just use I'm assuming that both these metrics, both these line items, other financial assets of the current assets, okay, days of, they would pretty much, I'm assuming they would be based off the numbers from last year. Okay. So I need to put them in a different color. I'll put them in the same color because since these are my assumptions, all right. And I've assumed same meaning, as, let me say, this is 2023 number throughout. Okay. Just notes to myself, be as elaborate as you want. Okay. But right now I'm just, all right. So now let me use this number same way you use the other numbers. Let me, if I log this, then I should be able to use that, the other number. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yes. Let me drag it. Okay. Let me do the same. Okay. So this has been projected out as well. Okay. See, across all these line items for inventory, financial assets, and other current assets, we assumed that they are based upon the past year. We, which is 2023, but only for receivables, we assumed a higher number. Okay. Because of the increasing health penetration, okay, which would delay the payments from the customers, okay, resulting in higher receivables. All right, okay. So this is done. So let's pull all of this in the balance sheet. Okay, so you have inventory. Let's go to the working. So okay, so first we have. So this is done. So inventory we have pulled. Now let's pull receivables. Receivables, all right, receivables we have pulled as well. Okay. Cash, this we can't pull yet. Okay. Because this would be linked with cash flow statement. Okay. All right. Okay. In fact, I as a practice, I should be labeling, let me label it as well. Okay. It is, this link is actually link 2. Okay. This is link 2. Okay. But I will label all the links so that we can track it as we go along. All right. Now, okay, so other FA we have estimated as well. So let's just pull it. Okay. Now, other CA we have estimated as well. So again, let's just pull it. Okay. So this is done. Now, let's put the totals. Yeah. So yeah, we're just totaling up the current assets. All right. And obviously, this is a lower number because we have not added cash yet. We are yet to estimate cash. Okay. All right. And we have marked it with yellow. Okay. And this is the link. This is our label. All right. Now let's logically move down the balance sheet. Let's go to the liability side. Okay. Now, in the liability side, in the equity and liability side, let's first complete the current liabilities because I want to finish off the working capital estimation. Okay. All right. So, all right. So my first is payables. Okay. So these items, these 5 items, they make up my current liabilities. Actually, you have loan and lease liabilities as well. So all of these, okay. But loan we'll be treating it separately. Loan and lease liabilities. All right. So first let's go to the working capital schedule. Okay. Okay. And look what we have for payables. Okay. So for payables, again, it should be days of payable outstanding. So I think I didn't pull it from the financial ratio sheet. So let me do it right now. All right. So here, yeah, 12.5. All right. And also let me check. Sorry for this detour. Let me check if how did I base off my Did I use COGS or did I use sales to calculate my days of payable outstanding? So it's H4 balance sheet payables divided by sales from operations. Yes, it's sales from operation. Yeah, all right. So I use sales instead of cost of goods sold, which is all right. Let's be just consistent. Okay. All right. So let me go to, yeah. All right. Okay. Now let's assume uh, the same payables days payable outstanding as last year. Okay. Let's drag it. Let's put it in a different color. Okay. And now yes, use this number to, and again, we already have the formula. So I'm just going to copy it from above. I'm going to paste it. So what it does is it uses this number 9.78, which is our assumption from last year, and uses it to estimate our payables for this year. And let's drag it along. Okay. So again, we are assuming same as 2023. Yeah. We could take the average of the last 5 years. I'm a little wary of using 2022 and 2021 because the COVID had hit. So numbers may not really uh, be, because the numbers from these years don't represent the normal year. Okay. Otherwise, now you can totally use like average. And all right. Okay. Now let's calculate. So days of, and again, days of FL outstanding. It's not an industry word per se. I could easily just base it off sales or any number, but I am just being consistent for the sake of consistency. All right. Okay. So I can use this number because I already have the formula here. Okay. So again, using the other financial liabilities, I see I'm just doing the same thing, what I've done. Okay. So let me just do it very fast. In fact, yeah. Okay. Right. Let me do the same for this as well. Days of FL. In fact, I can just do this. It will paste because I've logged the formulas, so it should work. Okay. The same thing we are doing, which we did for other line items above. Okay. And in all of these, I've pulled the number from above. All right. So I have provisions as well. All right. Okay. So let me pull provisions as well. Again, doing the same thing. I don't need to create separate formulas. I'm just going to since, yeah, it's work. So it should be fine. Okay. All right. So I'm just pulling from 2023. All right. Okay. Now, with all these numbers, let's go to the balance sheet and kind of start pulling all of these. All right. Okay. So in the balance sheet tables, we have tables. Let's go to the, yes, this is the tables. Okay. So this is, yeah, 2029. All right. Now let's pull the FL. I'm just pulling my working capital line items, which I just estimated in this balance sheet. Okay. Other FL, I have this. Okay. Other CL. Let's pull it. Provisions. Okay. Current tax liabilities. Did I estimate it? Okay, I don't have current liabilities. But oh, it's a very small number. I'm not going to break my head. So I'm just going to assume it's the same number from last year. Okay. So I am just going to assume it's the same. And all of this is working capital schedule. In fact, I should put that above as well. All right. Okay. So I have put there. So let me just be consistent. Okay. All right. Okay. Now let me sum up the current liabilities. All right. All right. Okay. So my current liability estimation is almost done with the exception of these two items, the short-term loans and lease liabilities. Okay. And here's what I'm going to do. Okay. All right. Hey, hi. So I just had a change in location. Okay. So that's why you guys see a different background. All right. So let's resume from where we left. So here you have short-term loans and your lease liabilities. Okay. By the way, what are lease liabilities? See, in 2019, accounting rules regarding treatment of operating leases were changed. So under old accounting, leases were expensed. Okay, that is, they were formed part of the P&L. But in the new accounting, uh, you know, operating leases have finally found the place where they truly belong. That is the balance sheet. Okay, so now they're treated as debt. Okay, so again, not getting into a lot of details into leases in this video. Okay, so what we're going to do is, okay, so both these short-term loans and long-term loans, along with the leases. Okay, so these two items here, okay, long-term loan lease liabilities and these short-term loans and the corresponding the lease liabilities, we're going to combine them into one and model them as a combined entity, as one line item instead of trying to model them out separately, because it's going to make our lives easier. Okay. All right. So let's do that. Let me add this with this. Long-term loans, lease liabilities plus short-term loans plus liabilities. All right. Okay. And for now, we're going to change this in the future. I'm going to assume that this is the total debt, that is both loans and lease liabilities. This is the total that they have on their books across all the 6 years. Okay. And we'll come back and definitely we're going to change this assumption. Okay. All right. Okay. That you would see when we go to the cash flow statement. All right. Okay. All right. So, what else is left to balance, or what line items are left here? Okay. So, in the liability side of the balance sheet, okay. All right. Let's complete all the other liability items. So you have like other FL, other financial liabilities, which are little pretty small, insignificant. Let's just assume that they remain the same. Okay. And then provisions. Again, for employee benefits, yeah, you could model them based upon sales or cost of goods sold. But for now, let me assume that they are same, and we can always come back and change it. All right. Deferred tax liability. Okay. All right. So let me also make the same assumption here as well. I'm just going to just assume that it remains the same. And same with other net current liabilities, which is pretty insignificant any which ways. Okay. And now let me sum up. Let me sum up everything. Okay. Now this again, this is the non-current liabilities. Okay. So we are done with that. obviously we're going to change the long term, we're going to change the loans, and we may come back and change the modeling of deferred tax liabilities and provisions as well. Okay. All right. But this is what we have for now. Okay. One thing that we have not modeled right now is equity. Okay. So let's do that. All right. So let's model equity. So if you remember, I said profit after tax from your income statement, it gets added to your equity. Okay. So let's pull the profit after tax from our income statement, and let's add it to equity. Okay. So the profit after tax is this amount. Okay. Now I add it to equity and let's drag it. Okay. Okay. So if you look at, uh, this, this, this whiteboard over here. Okay. So this 1A has been completed as well. We have completed 3A, we have completed 1A. Okay. All right. Most of the links have not been formed yet because we are yet to start building out the cash flow statement. Once we do that, then all of these links should pretty much not take a lot of time at all. Okay. All right. And I just realized that this link income interest, okay, since has not been linked yet, we've already estimated the loan. Okay. I know I said we're going to change the modeling of the debt, modeling of the loan. Okay. But since we have a number, so we can form the linkage. We can estimate whatever interest should be there on it, and we can link it with the income statement. So let's do that as well. Okay. So let's go back to the sheet. Okay. So let's go to the P&L. In the P&L, the interest cost. Oh, it has been all right. So I had already linked the formula. So this is done as well. All right, great. Okay, so this is done. All right. Let me put out the labeling as well. So the label for interest is 5. Okay. So this is 5. Okay. The label for profit after tax to equity is 1A. And this is linked with equity. Okay, so this has been done as well. Okay. And this link, I think we've already did that, right? So let's see what was the link label. Link label was 3A. Yeah, so this has been done as well. Okay. So all these 3 links have been formed. Okay. From the P&L. Okay. All right. Now, let's take a look at the balance sheet and see if there are any other items that we need to model. All right. We need to just complete this. So this is total liabilities, both short-term liabilities and long-term liabilities. And then this is overall equity plus liabilities. Okay. So let's track this as well. Okay. And here I have a small check just to see if my assets and liabilities, if they're matching or not. Ideally, they should be equal. Okay. So this is just total assets minus total liabilities and equity. Okay. So let me see. So if you see, this is H33, which is total assets minus my equity minus my liabilities. All right. Which is H65. So let me track this. Okay. So I see my liabilities are far more than my assets. Obviously, the balance sheet hasn't balanced yet. Okay. All right. Because there are still, we haven't really modeled the cash flow statement. And ideally, a lot of cash from the cash flow statement should come over to the asset side. Okay. Which should help balance the balance sheet. Okay. That's why my assets are lower. Overall assets are lower than my liabilities right now. Okay. All right. So now let's go and model the cash flow line items. Okay. Hey, hi. So welcome to module 6 of this education video series where we will be valuing an Indian healthcare provider, Koi Medical Center and Hospital. Okay. So in the previous two modules, we've modeled the income statement, that is the P&L and the balance sheet to the extent possible. Obviously, both of these two statements, they have dependency on the cash flow statement. All right. So let's go forward and model the cash flow statement. Okay. And just one thing more. I know this video is lengthy. So I'm hoping that you're a serious learner. And if you have any questions, feel free to write to me. And if you really are serious about learning, then I would strongly encourage that you pick a healthcare provider or any other company, or perhaps you pick Kowai, the same company. Okay. And try to model it along with me. That's the best way to learn. Okay. And that's really my objective. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Now let's go forward. Okay. Let's go to the cash flow statement. This is where the rubber meets the road. Okay. All right. So so in the cash flow statement, we have cash flow from operations, cash flow from investing, cash flow from operation. Then we have the cash, whatever cash is left after summing up the three sections. All right. So let's pull up the net income. Net income is there in the P&L, the income statement. Okay. This is very straightforward. Okay. Drag it. Then you pull depreciation and amortization. Okay. Depreciation and amortization is not an outflow. It's treated as a cash inflow because it's a non-cash expense. Okay. The money is with the company. It's not leaving the company. Okay. So let's pull depreciation and amortization. Okay. All right. We don't have to explicitly put anything here because we are considering, we didn't really specifically model the intangible assets separately. We could have, but it's a very small item. So we didn't want to really break our head, in modeling, in sorting the small stuff. Okay. All right. Now the next item is change in working. And by the way, all right, let's put our labels as well. Okay. So this is uh linked with income statement. Okay. And let's put a label from. So PAT goes to equity, that 1A we have already done. PAT goes to cash flow of operations. So this is 1B. And depreciation goes to cash flows is 3B. So 1B and 3B. So those are two labels. Okay. If it's confusing you, don't worry. Don't, you don't have to label it this way. I just thought it would be better if in case anyone wants to track all the linkages. Right. So this is 1B and this is 3B. Okay. All right. Besides tracking, this labeling nomenclature has no other significance. Okay. All right. Change in working capital. Okay. Change in working capital, it has to be netted. So it's a cash outflow, so to speak. Okay. So let's go to our financial ratio sheet. Okay. In the financial ratio, okay, we had estimated the working capital in the in one of the previous videos, in the financial statement analysis video. Okay. So all I have to do is I just have to drag it Okay. This is basically current assets minus current liabilities. Okay. And doesn't have any cash. So it is non-cash working capital. Okay. So all I got to do it, pause this video and take a look at this formula. Okay. Or I'll give you the Excel sheet and observe what I've done, or go to the financial statement analysis sheet, and there you'll appreciate, you'll be able to understand as to what components make up this. This is basically current assets minus non-interest bearing current liabilities. This is what it is. Okay. So let me pull it forward. Okay. So we have our working capital. Okay. Now let's go to back to the cash flow statement. Okay. All right. We've already estimated the change in working capital for the previous years, which is, see, this is H23 minus G23. So this is what it is. This is this line item minus this one. Okay. All right. So this is the difference between the two. And then we have put a negative sign because, as I said, this is netted off. Okay. From your cash. Okay. All right. So see, that's the reason why. So right now, see, what is happening is since, okay, this is negative working capital. Okay. And you see the negative, the magnitude of the is increasing. Okay. The way we have estimated working capital. Okay. So that's why we've put a negative sign, although we've put a negative sign. Okay. So this seems to be that this working capital is actually getting added back, to your cash, to your profits and to your amortization. Okay. Okay. If the firm was actually facing a working capital problem, if they were pressed for cash, okay, if they had large receivables, if they had large inventory, okay, if they have small payables, okay, or if they were paying the suppliers on time and they were not getting payments from their customers fast enough and they had a huge inventory, then it would have been reverse. Okay. Then what would have happened is the cash would have been stuck with the capital would have been stuck in receivables or inventory. Okay. All right. And you would have this as negative, but right now you have this as a positive. Okay. All right. So now so cash flow from operation is this plus this plus this. You drag it. So this is your cash flow from operations. Okay. All right. Now let's quickly, so we are done with the cash flow from operations modeling. Okay. Let's just, for the sake of tracking. Okay. If you see CA and CL, they are linked with cash flow from operations, and the label nomenclature is 7. So just for the sake of tracking, let's put the label here. Okay. And this is obviously linked with, actually we are pulling it from the financial ratio sheet. Okay. Right. All right. Okay. Now, the next item that we need to pull, now we are getting to the cash flow from investing part. Next item that we need to pull is CapEx. Okay. And we already have the CapEx, right? So again, you have to prefix a negative sign because this is a cash outflow. Money goes away from the company, goes out of the company. So let's go to financial ratios. Sorry. CapEx schedule. Sorry. In the CapEx schedule, okay, we have CapEx over here. Okay. All right. Let's pull it. So let's write the source. Source is CapEx. See, this all this labeling, this documentation also helps when, when you're kind of stuck, when your balance sheet is not balancing and you need to kind of go back and check and you have to debug as to where the problem is. Okay. Or perhaps some of the numbers are not making sense at all. So it's always helpful to kind of just put short notes, like this. All right. Now let's see CapEx linked with, yeah. So your change in gross assets is linked with your CapEx. So basically CapEx is the change in gross assets. So this linkage is established, so which is we calling it for. So now let's go back. So this is for, okay. Now we don't have to worry about these items because no way we can predict them in the future. Okay. So my cash flow from investing is just this, my CapEx. Okay. All right. Now let's look at this total debt issued, total debt repaid. Okay. Okay. So here, right now we have assumed no debt issued, no debt repaid. Okay. But I said we'll change that. Okay. We'll change that. For a moment, let's assume no debt has been issued. Okay. For a moment. Okay. And no debt has been paid. Okay. Let's, okay. Right. And by the way, okay, if in case we were to say issue some debt, okay, this needs to be added to the balance sheet. Okay, if we were to say put any debt, issue any debt, or or repay any debt. All right. So let's do that. Let's link it to the balance sheet. Okay. So this needs to be linked. Okay, let's write it after we're done with the linking. Okay. So let's go to the balance sheet. This is very important. Let's go back to the balance sheet. And here, okay, here in the long-term loans, I'm not really getting into short-term and long-term, treating this as total debt, total loan on the book, debt on the books. Okay. All right. So here, let's do plus this debt. If debt is issued, it would be added. If debt is repaid, okay, then this item here, cell I30, would be removed, okay, from the books. So that's why we are doing this. Pause this video if in case you need to go over it again. Okay. This is important, right? Now let's drag this. Yeah, we can drag this. Yes. Okay. Let's go to the cash flow statement. Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be like all bold. Sorry about that. And ideally, we should stick to 1 decimal or 2 decimals. So I'll make it everything 2 decimals. Okay. All right, let's do that in a bit. Okay. So here, if you remember, if we go to the whiteboard, okay, this linkage is 6. Okay. Because any debt, either you are issuing it or repaying it, need to be linked to the balance sheet. That's what we just did. So this is label 6. Okay. Again, just for tracking purpose. Okay. So let me write linked with BS. Okay. And here label name is 6. See, all the linkages are now falling into place. Okay. Now total dividends. See, we did not estimate dividends at all. Okay. But let's do that. Okay. Let's Ideally, I should be going to a different sheet, but I don't want to like lose momentum. Okay. So I'm just going to like estimate, calculate dividends as a portion of profits here. And I'm going to move them to the financial ratio sheet later, because ideally all your ratios should be housed in one sheet. Okay. So please just pardon me for that. Okay. I'm just doing it so that I don't lose momentum. All right. So my dividend, uh, or my payout ratio basically is my dividends divided by my profit. Okay. So my profit is, okay. All right. So my payout ratio is 2.8. I'm going to move it to financial ratios later. Okay. Let's drag it. Okay. Now I'm assuming that it would be 4% in the out years. Fact, everything need to be double decimal. So this is just an assumption. Since it's an assumption, let's put it in blue color, which was our convention. Okay. Now let's use this to estimate this 4% to estimate our dividends. So dividend would be minus, it needs to be prefixed with a minus sign because it's a cash outflow. Okay. Go to P&L. Okay. Holy me. What's happening? I All right. So this is done. See, one thing, uh, dividend, okay, it needs to be removed from your retained earnings, from your equity. Okay. So this needs to be linked with your equity. Okay. And by the way, I should write linked with, this is like the risk of stating the obvious. Okay. But this should be linked with equity. Okay. All right. So let's do that. We need to remove this dividend from getting added to your equity. Okay. So this minus, sorry. In fact, doesn't have to be minus. It's already a minus sign. Okay. Okay. This is done. All right. Now let's go to the cash flow statement. Okay. Cash, and then it's okay. Yeah. Cash flow from financing. Okay. Let's sum up all the components that we have modeled in cash flow from financing. Okay. Since right now it's debt is zero, but we'll change it later. Okay. So this is my cash flow from financing. It's negative because all we have is dividends. Okay. Now, okay, let's do that. Let's estimate the, yeah, it's I-17 plus cash flow from operations plus cash flow from investing plus cash flow from financing. Okay. And this should be the same. Yeah. Just making sure. All right. Okay. So this is our net change in cash. Now this cash that we produced this year and every other year needs to be linked to the balance sheet. Okay. So let's go and link it. Okay. So this should be linked with BS cash. Okay. And we link it. And what was the convention that we used? That was 2. All right. So this is the final one. All right. Now go to the balance sheet and where is my cash? Okay. See this cash and bank balance. This is basically cash. These are cash equivalents, right? Okay. So let's pull. So the cash really is this plus this. Okay. The cash from the previous year plus any net change in cash, which is this. Okay. Okay. So I think this should work. Yes. Okay. So now let's see. I think we've modeled everything. Yeah. So see, the balance sheet has balanced my equity plus liability, okay, is equal to my total assets. That means uh, all our linkages are spot on. Okay. So this completes our modeling of the financial statements, balancing of the balance sheet. Okay. Right. Now, very quickly, let's just check, had the balance sheet not balanced, what I would have done is I would have checked all the linkages, and then this tracking, all these numbers, all this labeling that I've done, then it would have helped. Okay. But since the balance sheet has balance in the first go, so we are kind of saved from that effort. Okay. But many a times, it does not. Okay. All right. All right. So now let's take a look at some of the observations from this modeling exercise. Okay. Let me reduce the size so it fits in one page. Move my photo there. Okay. All right. Now let's take a look at the cash on the books. All right. So the cash equivalents, they change from 250 CR to around almost 1400. So it's what, five and a half times. Okay. So they would put most of this in the bank and earn interest of it. And we can model the interest if we want to. Okay. Because that's going to increase the overall profitability. We haven't modeled the interest that they would make on this income yet, on this cash yet. All right. Now let's go ahead, okay, and take a look at the loans. Okay. So the overall loans rather, okay, we have assumed that this would stay at 500 something. Okay. But this very well may not be the case. Okay. In fact, in the next module, we'll play around with this debt and see what kind of impact it has on the valuation of this company. Ideally, what would happen is that they would pare down this debt with the cash that they have there on their books. So this should go down. But if in case they decide to go ahead with capacity expansion, then they may or may not take additional loans. Okay. So in fact, uh, using this model, you could also uh, find out when and how much debt is needed to fund growth. So model would indicate when the internal accruals are not enough to fund growth. Okay. So because Kova is already it has good fundamentals, the cash rich company. Okay. So it may not really need debt a whole lot. Okay. But there are companies like I valued a company Tina Rubber. Okay. It's there in my blog. Okay. And so that company, and there are a lot of other companies like that, we cannot go without putting in debt. So the model indicates you right away, you know what, if you don't if you don't like take debt, then you can't really grow in the future because it will keep on depleting your equity. You would not be left with any cash. So the model kind of does give that indication, right? So that's pretty interesting, all right? So yeah, so if in case you're interested, I can perhaps in one of the future sessions, I should take you through the Tina rubber valuation, all right? And but this model also would give you that indication, okay, that when debt is needed and when internal accruals are enough to fund growth. Okay, all right, okay. So we'll play with this debt component in the valuation. Okay, all right. Now let's go to the financial ratio sheet and take a look at some of the observations. So our convention is that the assumptions have been put in blue. Okay. And these are like calculated numbers and these are assumed numbers. So if you just base this off of historical 2023 numbers. Okay. So if you see the EBIT margin, the operating margin has increased from 17.6 to 19%. And the reason why is because we've assumed a constant cost profile. So if you look at SG&A, it's constant. Okay. So what is happening is that your say your cost profile, your SG&A is the same, but your sale is increasing. So they are getting a lot of operating leverage, which is playing out. Okay. And so that's one of our key assumptions that right now, see, they are operating at 55% capacity utilization, 20% occupancy, but it should increase in the future with cost remaining the same. So they should see their margin expand. All right. Okay. So that's our assumption. Okay. All right. And yeah, we can always tweak this. If in case if they come out with, we'll cross check with 2024 numbers, and if they see the margin is on the decline, then we'll tweak our assumptions. Okay. All right. And if you look at PAT is also increasing. Okay. But interestingly, if they pay down their debt with the cash that they have, which we'll do in the next module, okay, then what you would see is the PAT will increase further because the interest component, okay, would be removed from would significantly reduce, would reduce from the P&L. That's why you should see a higher net profit margins. Okay, if we do that in the next module. All right. Now let's take a look at efficiency. See, efficiency, let me drag this. And again, I've spoken at length about these efficiency ratios in my last video. So let me drag them along. So efficiency is really asset utilization, how they're sweating their assets. All right. Oops, capital efficiency is, okay. So I've not okay. All right. So invested capital efficiency is sales divided by invested capital. So let me project out invested capital as well. Okay. So I again, in my video in financial statement analysis, I went at length in explaining that invested capital you could estimate using two ways. One is through the asset side, that is the application of funds, and the other is to the liability side, which is the application, which is the source of funds. Okay. All right. So different companies adopt different approaches. All right. So I have taken the approach which I usually do. All right. So when I project it out in the future, okay, then I observe these ratios, okay, then I see that they have been increasing over time. In fact, in 2018, their turnover ratios, capital efficiency was well above 1. Okay, so what I'm saying is that it should go above 1, okay, and it should increase beyond that as well. All right, and see why that is. Why am I making that assumption? Okay, so if you go to the operation ratio sheet, you would see my occupancy is increasing from 55 to 70%. Okay, so what would happen is you would have more people flocking in, more patients coming in, and which should lead to better asset or bed utilization, and which would, how it's going to play out in the financial ratio, it should lead to more capital efficiency. Okay. Now let's but yes, if in case the company were to add capacity, this hospital were to add more beds or build more buildings or build additional hospitals, okay, then again the capacity utilization wouldn't look this pretty. Okay, it would again start dipping. Okay, unless of course they reach an optimal level of utilization in that newly added capacity. All right, and then we'll have to give it uh, a higher growth period. Right now, our growth period is a forecast period is 5 years, but then we'll have to assume uh, an increased or a higher forecast period, right? Okay. And I strongly recommend that you can you perhaps, if you're picking this company, you can do that and then see what kind of impact it has on the valuation. Okay. But yeah, but right now, these are my assumptions. I'm assuming no capacity expansion because there has been no explicit communication from the management in that regard. Okay. Although I did estimate the potential incremental beds that Kowai could have, uh, so that is something that we already estimated. All right. Now, moving forward, solvency, debt by equity. So debt by equity should drop because again, debt remains the same, equity keeps on increasing. Interest coverage ratio, which is the key ratio which goes in the determination of credit rating of a company. So this would increase. This is on the rise as well. So if it increases, then credit rating agencies they give you a better rating, which has a positive impact on your interest costs. Okay, but their interest costs are already like pretty good, 8%. Yeah. So I'm not sure what kind of if there is scope of further improvement. All right, so it's already pretty good, right? Leverage is it's by equity. So let's grab this. Okay. And now I'm more interested in estimating return on these return ratios. Okay. So if you look at my return ratios, return on invested capital really is a function of two things, your operating margin and your capital efficiency. So we looked that both of these two parameters, operating margin and capital efficiency, both of them are increasing as per the assumptions that we have taken. That's why you see an increase in ROIC. Okay. All right. Now, return on equity, there's a dip. Okay. That's because your denominator, your equity, okay, you are keep on adding profits to equity. So your denominator inflates, your equity inflates. Okay. But your net profits are not keeping pace up with the additional equity. That's why your ROE is on a great decline, but your ROIC is rising. Okay. All right. So now with that said, I think so let's go back to the objective in sheet and yeah. See, so we covered cash flow statements. Using financial ratios is actually not only relevant to this module, it's kind of relevant all across. Okay. And then this is what we did. We linked the statements together when we model the cash flow items. All right. Emphasis on common errors. Okay. So I was just describing. Okay. So that's why I find it helpful to kind of track all the linkages if in case the balance sheet doesn't balance, so you could always go and debug. Okay. Right, which linkage is not proper. Okay. And some of the other common errors is, okay, I've written some of them here. One is spreadsheet hygiene. See, always ensure that an year is in the same column across all the sheets. So you would have observed, okay, that say if I'm talking about balance sheet, okay, year 2024 is in column I in all my sheets. Okay. So please ensure that. Okay. Otherwise, you would not realize when you mess it up and you spend umpteen amount of time trying to debug what has happened. So always it's a good practice that ensure an year is in the same column across all the sheets. And please never don't do any hard coding. I know you are tempted, even I am tempted to make hard codes. Okay. When I don't want to lose momentum. Okay. But please don't do that. Okay. No hard codes and log the formulas. Third is log the formulas properly. Okay. Because will keep on dragging formulas all across. If the lock is not proper, if you're not locking the formulas, locking the cells properly, then the dragging obviously it's not going to work and you would run into problems. Okay. All right. And again, assumptions always placed in separate sheet, always document assumptions to the extent possible. Always, it will help you debug, help you go back and check where the problem occurred. Okay. All right. And always review linkages. That's next. And then, yeah. So I've mentioned a few of the linkages here. All right. So anyways, guys, hopefully this was helpful. This module was helpful. It was shorter than the others because we kind of did bulk of the work in the previous modules. Okay. Now comes the interesting part in the next module, which is discounted cash flow modeling. Okay. All right. Now it becomes very interesting. Now we'll actually we'll do the actual valuation of this business. We'll do the DCF. Okay. All right. So hope this until now this has helped. And right, if you have any questions, and I'll feel free to, if you want this sheet, I'll forward it to you. Okay. All right. Yeah. And all right. So see you in the next one. Thank you.